Thank you for tuning in to Elevated Arts in Healing, the podcast. I'm your host, Amy Elevated, and we are back for another episode in the Thriving in Recovery series. Today, we're going to be talking about creativity in recovery, writing your own story, and just getting into what that looks like and some examples of how I've used creativity in recovery just to give you some ideas and get your mind going. Before we get into the episode, as always, please like and subscribe if you're over here on YouTube. And if you are on Spotify, please subscribe as well. That way you can be notified as soon as those new episodes drop. I appreciate all of you for being here. And if you like the podcast, you can leave some comments or you can write a review. We always love a good review. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop in today's episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right. So we are talking about creativity in recovery. I feel like creativity plays a pretty crucial role in recovery. Even because if you really think about it, like even in those traumatic moments, we were creative coming up with solutions. That's how we found some coping mechanisms. And maybe, they worked for a while until they didn't, and that's okay. But we still were really creative thinking of those things. And then also, like, just to put it in the context of addiction, like anybody who is in active addiction gets really creative to be able to keep that going. So we can also apply that in the sobriety and recovery process for getting healthy and well. So, there's a lot of different ways to get creative, a lot of different ways to take those paths of recovery. So, like, just exploring things that feel good to you and your soul and what fits well in your life. Here at Elevated Arts and Healing, we love art and expression, and it can be used like writing, art, music. It can help in that self-expression process and healing. And it was especially helpful for me to tap into those things because I had been so disconnected from my art in my addiction. Um, I mean, I felt like it helped me, but in reality, I stopped doing a lot of the things that I love to do. And, none of it brought me joy. And I also wasn't using it as a way to process like my feelings like I used to. And that was hard for me because then I wasn't processing anything. I was just stuffing it down and pretending that it wasn't there. So that ultimately led me more towards to lean into that addiction because that was my coping mechanism. That was my one tool in my toolbox. And now in sobriety, I've had to like really just reconnect to those things and let the process me in a way that feels good to me. And I feel like that's an important part of the recovery, like getting to know yourself and then finding what feels good to you. Like I definitely would suggest that you try some form of art, and I really feel like everything is art. Like every medium I love, like writing and painting and coloring, and I love even like graphic design and interior design and all of those things. Like I really love that creativity has a place in almost every space if you are willing to open your mind to it. And I that's just like the one thing I definitely appreciate in sobriety is just being able to get and stay creative. So on this road of recovery, I have learned how to take control of the narrative in a way that's freeing for me, I would say. I used to have to deal with other people saying things about me and them not being true and having people look at me a certain way before they even know who I am and what I'm about. And so in my early 20s, like I really kind of went balls to the wall with like I wanted things to look and feel and go a certain way. Like I wanted to be in control of it. I was ready to like take the narrative and take it where I wanted it to go instead of where it just needed to flow. And in recovery, I have learned that letting go of the past is important. So I do feel like letting go of the past is really important when writing your own story because you don't have to attach yourself to that past person. Speaking especially to those who are on that sobriety journey, because if you know, like I know, sometimes that identity gets wrapped up in who you were during your addiction, and that's not really you. And in sobriety, you get to really figure out who you are. And like some of it was you. And that might even surprise you in the process of like figuring out, like, oh, I am still fun. I'm this wonderful person down here. And I didn't have to use a substance to coax it out. And it's a big deal when that's been your coping mechanism for a long time. I struggled with letting go of the past for a really long time. For somebody who didn't like to deal with things, I definitely did live in the past. I did um, really like stuffing those things down. I realized like I wasn't holding on to it and I needed to process it and then put it down. I just assumed that I had to hold on to those things to remember, like, don't let anybody hurt you, or, those things that we tell ourselves. And in reality, we're supposed to learn from those things, but you get to process it, feel it, and then you get to put it down. Like, you don't have to carry the pain around with you. You're only supposed to carry the lesson. And that was, something that I'm really glad that I've started to tap into. So if you are on this journey of recovery, no matter what it is, especially if it deals with traumatic experiences, like you don't have to carry that pain around with you. Um, it's not, you don't have to. You can process it and feel it, express it through art or however you want to do, and then leave it on the page, on the canvas, on the track, whatever it is that you do to express yourself, and then you get to be who you want to be. And that's another thing with like writing your own story and being in recovery is like figuring out who do you want to be? Who is that person that you've always dreamed of being, and how do you get there? And the cool thing about being the person that you want to be is like it doesn't matter what you did in the past. If you learned from it and you grew from it and you take accountability for what you've done, and you know what I'm saying? Like then you get to grow and be who you want to be. So definitely I wouldn't count yourself out because we've all done some things that maybe we're not super proud of, but we've learned from and taken accountability for, and taking that accountability helps us grow. And it doesn't always feel good because taking accountability for certain things, it doesn't always mean like everything just goes back to being amazing. Sometimes it means you have to process the loss of something because of actions and choices that were made. And that is part of the process. And there's a lot of freedom in writing your own story, a lot of freedom in empowerment and reclaiming the authorship of your life. And that you don't have to be defined by these things that you've done or said, or like I said, like definitely take accountability, but you don't have to continue to be that person. You don't have to beat yourself up for mistakes that you made. Just grow from it and do better from here on out. And, just approach things and try to be kind and really just move from a place of love. And when I say move from a place of love, I don't mean be a doormat, but just think about things from a humanitarian standpoint because we're all humans at the end of the day. Um, And with letting go of the past as well, like there's some important factors in that. Forgiveness and self-compassion are going to be huge. And that kind of goes with what we were just talking about. With letting go of the past and rewriting your story is, not forgiving yourself. And it really starts with forgiving yourself. And I remember when I had just gotten back from the hospital. I mean, I might have been like 2 weeks post mental hospital, being out, and I remember my mom talking to me, and she was like, "You need to apologize to yourself." And it took me a while to kind of like get that, but that's where I started. Like, as far as like making amends, like I started with myself because at the end of the day, like I had abandoned myself. And even more than that, I was my biggest bully. I was, hurting myself over and over and over again. And it was time for me to apologize and forgive myself for doing those things as well. And that gave me more space to be more compassionate with myself. And the more compassionate I've been with myself, the more compassionate I've been able to be with others. And I feel like that gives them also the space to then show up and be compassionate in other areas of their lives as well. So that's been an important part of my journey is self-compassion, especially when we make those mistakes and realizing this doesn't define who I am and I can move forward. So we embrace the future, embracing what can be and, you know, go for it. So, like, shifting that focus towards the possibilities in recovery and getting creative. Like, really, like, if you were your most recovered, healed version of yourself, like what is that person doing? Like what have you accomplished? Like really like dream big because you honestly never know. You never know where you're going to end up. I mean, I feel like I've ended up in a lot of different places in recovery and I've only been in recovery here for I'm at 2 years and 8 months now and that's a lot. But I mean, that's honestly, it's still like I'm still in the baby stages and it's neat because like if I've already done this much in this little time, like imagine, when I get to like 10 years and what I can be accomplishing and how many lives I will have touched. And, I want to do my best to stay on the path. So that's why I really wanted to like tap into getting down to like building the foundations and thriving in recovery because I feel like the more we talk about these things, the more ideas we can come up with because it's never a one size fit all thing. Like not every program is going to work for everybody, not every affirmation is going to work for everybody. And it's nice to kind of have these conversations with people who have been on the path of recovery from different things and just see what they have come up with and kind of putting our ideas together, collaborating and moving up as a community. So that's like a really, really cool thing. And it brings hope. It fosters resilience and gives you support in that transformational period because it's so crucial. And sometimes it's scary because you don't really know this version of you yet, and you don't really know what's coming in the future. And sometimes that's scary, but I think it's cool that we really do get to create our experiences. And I don't mean like you get to control your life every single turn that it goes, but you do have choices and you can make choices that will lead you towards where you want to go. And then you have to give yourself grace and give the universe space to move you. And that is also about collaboration. And I'm really with it. I'm really with it. And so you really want to try and stay like grounded in the present moment and really enjoy it. So don't get too lost in the future. For me, I had an issue with either being too far in the past or getting too lost in the future. And sometimes that makes me anxious if I go too far in the future and I'm like, oh, how am I going to take care of this and this and this and this? Not even realize like I'm taking away from my present moment and being able to maybe make a decision that would alter something that I have no idea that it's going to alter yet. So that's really super interesting. I love that also, this leaves a lot of room for choice and being able to choose. Um, because going back to my story where I felt like I needed to control the narrative and strictly steer it exactly where it needed to go, I know that I can choose to be the person that I want to be, but I don't get to choose how people perceive me because that's their perception of me, and that's okay. I can also choose to not attach to needing everyone to see me the way that I want them to see me. The people who are meant to see me will see me, and those who don't, they just don't. They can't really see through whatever experience that they're in, and maybe I don't fit in their experience, and that's okay because everybody doesn't fit into my experience. So that has been a really freeing thing because then, you can get to the point where you don't care what other people think. And, we're always going to value the opinions of people we love, but I've gotten to the point where, I can value the opinions of the people I love without compromising who I am and what it is that feels good to me. So just because like someone else might not understand it, doesn't mean that I have to make my decision based on that. I can live my life in a way that feels good to me. And as long as I'm not harming anyone else, then that's the goal. And I know that a lot of us don't intentionally mean to harm people, but sometimes we do unintentionally. And then that is when the accountability comes in, and there might be some adjusting to be had, um, just so that you're able to extend like compassion and grace to that person as well, if that's something that you really want to do. So, I the last little bit that I'll give you about being creative in recovery and writing your own story is like really just give yourself like time to, I would definitely like do like a journal session or something that feels good to you. Maybe chat it out on a voice note if that feels more up your alley, or just write bullet points if you don't really want to write a whole journal, but like really, really run wild with it and think like the most if you had if life was going exactly the way that you wanted it to go, like what would you be doing? How are you feeling? What kinds of things are you into? Um, what would make your heart happy? And this might take a while to put together because I know for me, it took me a while to even figure out like what do I even like? What do I even like to do? What are my favorite things? Like, I don't even know because I had been so engrossed with people pleasing that, like, I had just taken on the likes of the people around me. So, definitely explore what you like and what makes you feel good, the things that you like to eat, and then start to incorporate more of those things. And then also, I will say, um, get creative on how you bring certain things into your life. I know that I ask myself the question, what would make my life easier? Like right now, if I could have this one thing or do this one thing or whatever it is, like what would make my life easier? And I can pick like the very most important one and try to figure out a way to kind of incorporate those things in, because when you can make certain things in your life easier, it helps you to be able to show up for the things that like you just don't have any control over, and they may be really hard, and you have more space to do that because you're not fighting every day um around obstacles that you don't have to. So like if there's things that you can take off of your plate, if there's obstacles that you can move out of your way, like definitely invest in doing that for yourself because you deserve that. You deserve for things to be a little bit easier, like we all do. We work hard, and even on top of that, like we've been through a lot, y'all. Like we've been through a lot. So whatever you can do to make it easier for yourself, I would do that. And that will in turn give you the space and grace to show up for your community as well. And, have space to extend compassion and kindness to those around you. And then it can, so on and so forth. Um, yeah, I'm really excited and thankful that y'all have tuned in. Um, these surviving to thriving hoop alchemy workshops are going really, really well. And if you would like to check those out, you can purchase those on the site. You can also follow me on Instagram. I do hoop content and things on there, and so you can kind of get a sneak peek and also like join me for fun things over on Instagram. And sometimes I'm on Facebook too, but I mostly am active on Instagram right now and on the site. So if you want to do those classes, definitely check out the site amyelevated.com. Um, and grab your Empowered Consistency workbook or one of the ebooks and kind of work through that. That also has some resources in there for you to work through, like the creative aspects and being able to write your own story. There's a lot of really good art activities and creative activities to go with building the foundations and mindfulness and building your resilience and even building for the future to make this more sustainable for you. So definitely check out those resources. And there's going to be more stuff going up. So definitely, definitely, definitely keep up. Yeah, so that is it. That is all I have for y'all today. Thank you again for tuning in. And as always, love yourselves, make good decisions, and I will see y'all later.